the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the BankPlus Studio.
You are listening to
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9. The Zone.
This hour of the show is brought to you by the amazing bone-in ribeye at Kessler Prime in the Renaissance. KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. 105.9 The Zone ESPN. We welcome in Steve Robertson on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, Gene's page, 247 Sports, the Boneyard Podcast. Steve, what is the biggest topic on Gene's page right now?
Probably the NCAA baseball transfer portal right now. That's probably big, followed closely by the SEC proposed schedule models. I would say those are probably the two most discussed things.
Okay. How do you feel about Jake Gautreaux, Lamonis's #1 assistant? If you had to bet today, I know Central Florida will go through the process. There could be some others. Do you think he's in Starkville for another year, or he's the head baseball coach somewhere else?
I think he probably is, because I'm not sure if the right opportunity comes along right now. But, I wouldn't rule it out, obviously. Jake's a guy that has made a name and a reputation for himself. And, offensively, State was pretty good this year. And so I don't think, even though you had this negative season, that his star has changed his trajectory at all. I think a lot of people envision him being a head coach sooner rather than later. But, I know Jake wants to get it fixed. At the same time, too, as we discussed before, Jake's got to make the best decision for himself, his family, and his career. So if that opportunity presented itself, I could see him taking that.
Okay. Where are they? How much progress have they made? And I know they have a lot more to do in the baseball program. I'm not sure it's realistic, but give me a state of the state right now.
Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to get this pitching coach hire finalized. And, what's interesting about that, Bo, is, we covered so many of these coaching searches. And, when these things are ongoing, you've got people reaching out to you left and right, or you call friends in the agency world and things like that. They want to get their client's name associated with the job. There's just not much of that out there right now. And what that leads me to believe is that I think most people probably expect this vacancy is close to being filled. And so I believe that's really close to happening. It's probably within, 24 to 48 hours, the new pitching coach's current team season ending. So that's always interesting, because there's all these people out there that have information. And it's been fairly tight-lipped. We got some names early on, of course, and then usually there's, new names popping up every couple of days. That hadn't been the case, and not just with us, but with the National College Baseball media. And so I think they're very, very close to having this thing wrapped up. And then from there, you've got to go get in the portal. You got to get some pitching. State's got to get at least 2 starters out of the portal and probably get a closer in addition with a third baseman. And then you kind of maybe assess on, the best available from there to make you a better ball club.
Why would do you think Walton from Oklahoma State is in the mix, and why would he leave his alma mater?
I think he is in the mix. And when his name first popped up to me, I had the same questions. I was like, why would he leave? And some people have told me that they think that he feels maybe it's time for him to make a change. Guys get bored after a while too. We're all in this, profession. You need something fresh. You need a new challenge. And I think, he's been a head coach before. I don't think he has those aspirations to do that again. And I think he's ready for another challenge. And, perhaps it'll be at Mississippi State. But yeah, I definitely think that he is a priority candidate.
Okay. So but they could play. You're thinking this thing could be wrapped up sooner than later. They could play. The Oklahoma State Cowboys could play for a while, Steve.
They could. This thing could be wrapped up Monday, though, right?
That's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, they don't get out of the regional, but I suspect they will. I think they'll win the regional and probably get to the Super. But, the thing that I always say is that it's rarely ever the first name you hear. I think only in my career I can remember one time when the first name that I heard got hired, and that was Todd Grantham, under Dan Mullen a couple of years ago, and a few years ago. Now I'm getting old, but usually that first name that gets out there is driven by agents, and they're just trying to get, the best deal they possibly can. If it's not with another program, they want to get a lucrative extension with their current school. But this Rob Walton thing hadn't gone away, and that's one thing that kind of has me curious, is because usually when that name comes out early on, you see it wrapped up and the guy withdraws, or they announce a new extension fairly quickly. But as we stand here today, I mean, none of that's happened.
Okay, give me your top three. Who you think is in play, your top three? And who could be named between now and either Monday or if a team advances to the Super Regional after that?
Yeah, it's tough to handicap it. You know, I mean, Mascara, of course, is a name that everybody likes, but a lot of people suggest that he is a head coach in waiting, that he may actually get a head coaching job this year. And a lot of people mentioned early on Kyle Bunn. I don't know that I support that contention just because, you know, Bunn's a guy that he was with Lamonis before, and Lamonis elected to hire Foxhall rather than bring Bunn with him. And so he's already had the chance to hire him once. I mean, would he do it again? You know, maybe the search gets to him. You know, who knows? You know, maybe some priority candidates don't work out. Maybe it gets there. You know, he just left the University of Houston, but I think he's down the list a little bit. But, you know, there's a lot of names out there. I mean, that's the thing that college baseball searching coverage always has, is there's always names that are popping up. But I just don't think we're going to see a lot of new names unless something goes south with with Walton. And it's far from a done deal. People need to understand that. Even if there's a handshake agreement, it's not something that's over. I mean, these things change. So you get a contract and get somebody on campus, you don't have a coach.
Oh, this is interesting. Rob Walton leaving his alma mater. I know Mississippi State's a big-time program, and for a 13-year stretch, they were a top 10 program. Okay. Steve Robertson, genespage.com, the Boneyard Podcast on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. I've only got a couple of minutes, Steve. Let's go to Zach Arnett, football recruiting. What are your expectations the next 10 days as the big camps next weekend?
Well, you got a big one tonight, too. You know, the annual Top Dog campus tonight.
Oh, it's tonight. I thought it was next Thursday.
Yeah. And they've been pushing to get guys on campus. Supposed to be a really good list of players there tonight. And there's a lot of guys that are similarly situated. So you want to get them on campus and work them out and then kind of establish a pecking order. But, you know, State needs some juice, you know, and I think they're going to get some here in the next few weeks. I mean, I'm not saying there's going to be a string of commitments that, you know, kind of changes everybody's impression. But I think Bulldog fans just want something to feel good about. And I do think there's some commitments that are coming, some guys that have been kind of leaning towards commitment that'll get the push to go ahead and get it done. But I think business is about to pick up. I think it's going to be a really busy summer when it comes to recruiting. I think they're going to get several commitments between now and the opening weekend.
Yeah, Ole Miss kind of feels like they've got the momentum. What are your thoughts there in State?
There's a lot of talented players in State, you know, and that's the thing too. It's just, you know, we're basically in the first quarter right now, you know, and so
that's true.
You know, what happens on signing day is what matters most. Because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter when they commit as long as they sign, you know. And it's a great class this year. I mean, it really is a great class. And there's a couple guys out there that, you know, have some recruiting juice that I think are really good players, and maybe their rankings are a little bit inflated. And so fans start chasing stars and thinking about stuff of that nature. And those rankings are going to change. And not necessarily because of who they commit to, but I think it's important just to find the right fit, you know, culturally and obviously from a position standpoint to fit your system. And so, yeah, you got to go find the guys and you got to get them committed, and you got to get them signed, and then you got to go win some football games. But I think if anybody has had a better opening to their college coaching career at Mississippi State than Zach Arnett, I'd like to see it. I mean, every move he's made so far has been the right one. And I think he'll do a good job with this one, too.
Who do you think is the number one recruiter on his staff today?
Yeah, it's tough to evaluate that because there's so many of these guys that, you know, they're brand new to the system and brand new to the staff. And so, you know, Tony Hughes obviously is a guy in State that I'd put up against anybody. But as far as, like, you know, true evaluator and relationship builder and then a developer of talent, I'd probably go David Turner. But I'm eager to see what Chad Bumpus is going to do. Chad did a really good job at Utah. And now that he's here and has worn the uniform and understands what it means to play in the Southeastern Conference, I think Chad's going to do really well.
Steve Robertson, we appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
See you, bud.
Steve Robertson, Gene's Page, the Top Dog, Big Dog, whatever campus tonight. I was a week off. I just got back from the Dominican. Okay? I was down there for 7 days. We'll be back in a second. All right, good morning. Welcome in. Yes, I got the cryotherapy yesterday at Core Cryotherapy and Wellness. Makes me feel good. Right across from Sombra in the township. Core Cryotherapy and Wellness. Cryotherapy takes 3 minutes, and it is amazing. They also have the liquid IVs to make your immune system better, healthier, and stronger. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We've got some Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC. Greg is definitely a starched shirt guy, but he's got a great job making $8 to $10 million a year as the SEC commissioner, and we're going to drop some audio here in just a minute. But I want to give a shout out to Jason Young. Jason Young, he's been in the insurance business for 30 years, 30 plus years, and he's with FBBI. You know it as Bottrell. But with over 30 years of experience maximizing contractors' bonding capacity in the Southeast, proven history of responding with a sense of urgency and optimism to his clients, bid and contract bond needs, go with Jason Young. He's with FBBI Insurance. You know it as Bottrell. And they are one of the oldest and most respected names in the construction bonding industry. Jason Young. I've got Blake Mania with me. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. Chris Hopwood will join us coming up next at 8:30. He is the director of the Sportsbook for the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. And then late in the show, 9:15, 9:30, we'll have B3 Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue. The food truck will be here. They are going to cook us some food, and we're excited about that. I think it's going to be the fried chicken Dirty Bird wrap and some burgers and some onion rings. So we're going to have a breakfast, brunch, lunch powered by B3, Burgers, Blues, and Barbecue. And, again, this is a Boar's Head weekend. Premium meats, cheeses, and hummus. Ooh, some cold hummus with some carrots, celery, or your Triscuit or chip of choice as you head to the pool, lake, river, beach, and golf course. This was great. So some of the national media, Dan Wolkin, Dan Wetzel, Pat Forty, they like to stand up, and I like Dan Wetzel, by the way. We've had him on the show. He's a good dude. But they are determined that we have to play non-conference games to make it even.
Yep.
As far as SEC compared to the other leagues that are playing non-conference games. Well, that's nonsense because of the physicality component, how many top 5, top 10, top 15, 20, and 25 recruiters we have in the SEC. The overwhelming majority are in the top 30. Okay, then you got Mizzou and Vanderbilt. And I know Vanderbilt's out in no man's land, but you have 3 top 5s. And I'm sorry, 4, if you kind of want to count A&M, but Bama, Georgia, LSU are in the top 3 with Ohio State in the top 5. And then A&M swimming around there. Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, all in those top 11, 12, 13. And South Carolina between 18 and 20. Ole Miss at 20, 21. Mississippi State and Arkansas between 25, 26, 27. Y'all get the drill. Oh, and Kentucky's moved into 25, 26, 27. This is Greg Sankey letting everybody else know in the world of college football that we own them.
I think we ended that football season with a 65-7 win in the national championship game. And if the indictment somehow is going to be that we don't play the highest level of college football, then somebody's not actually watching football games. And we're at 8, but we have a requirement that you play an additional game against a non-conference opponent from one of our colleague conferences. Our major independent, the major independent numbers are changing right now. The 8 format arguably has worked really well as the helicopter goes by. The 9 format can work really well. So I think pundits, coaches, analytics people can make a bunch of different arguments, but I actually think either one of those models will keep us very secure in the college football playoff consideration.
Yeah, the national championship game was 65-7, Georgia over TCU, and it could have been worse. So that's something that Mississippi State and Ole Miss have to do every Saturday. They play LSU, top 5 recruiter. Alabama, number 1 recruiter. Georgia, 1A recruiter. Auburn, number 12 recruiter. A&M, number 5 recruiter. Y'all get the drill. Heck, when Mississippi State and Ole Miss play each other. Ole Miss around 2021, State around 26, 27. Arkansas is around there too, 25, 26, 27. It's just no other league has anything close to that.
Yeah, you just named more top 25 recruiters than Oklahoma's played in the last 5 years.
That's true. That's why it's going to be a rude awakening. Oklahoma will be Mississippi State and Ole Miss, maybe, in the SEC. They are staring down the barrel of being a 6-6, and they could even go 5-7, especially with the Venables type coach.
Absolutely.
But they could go 6-6 in a heartbeat in our league. And over the next 15 years, they will melt down like Nebraska melted down since 2002. Now, Nebraska didn't do it because they were in a tough league. They did it because, they fired Frank Solich, who was excellent, but he just wasn't Tom Osborne. But they made bad move after bad move. And Oklahoma is going to be about a 500 club going forward after being really well run under Bob Stoops in a weak league for 20 years, and then handing it off to Lincoln, who also did Lincoln Riley, who also did a good job. I think the biggest now, I think Texas can turn it after they make a change with Sark, because they're always going to recruit gangbusters.
Yep.
But I don't know if they're ever going to be tough enough. Like Mississippi State and Ole Miss are 2 of the toughest programs in the country because they had to be. They're used to this physical gauntlet. The SEC West is the toughest gauntlet in North American sports, including any NFL division, any Major League Baseball division, and any NBA division. It's the toughest gauntlet in American sports. State and Ole Miss, that's why they've got the sharp elbows and the sharp edges.
Yep.
Oklahoma, although tougher than Texas, and Texas haven't had to do this, Blake. So Texas, they're as soft as some of the trust fund babies that you and I grew up with.
There's no doubt. I think it's going to be a rude awakening for Texas when they try to come in. And even though they've got more talent than Oklahoma, I'd argue if Oklahoma moves off of Venables, they could be better prepared to fight the battles of the SEC just because of their mentality as a program.
Well, you're right. If Oklahoma hires the University of Texas San Antonio coach, which Bartu dropped on the show yesterday, who is absolutely excellent, then Oklahoma can be a 7-win program, which is huge. A lot of people go, Bo, you just said 6. The difference in one game in college football is gigantic, huge. And at times they'll go 8-4.
Yeah.
If they and 9-3 maybe, depending on the schedule that they pull. But if they go hire the University of Texas San Antonio coach or Western Kentucky coach, they just went after a name that they knew that had already been at Oklahoma and that was part of Dabo's empire. And Venables is an excellent DC, but he's not a head coach.
No, 100%.
And Sark is not a head coach.
Yeah, you're going to see
he's
that again.
He's a good OC. So
I'm 100%. I think Venables is going to keep Oklahoma down. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. They may be lucky this year just because they're in the Big 12, but I don't know. We'll see. In fact, it will be. I am interested to see what Oklahoma does in their last year in the Big 12. Can he at least get to 8 wins?
What if he doesn't? What if he goes 6-6 again?
Oh, well, then
he'll
be on the hot seat, and then he'll come into the league, and they'll probably get boat raced.
I would think so.
5-7, and then they'll have to go figure out what they want to do.
All will depend on who they get. Yeah.
Castiglione does not want his last few years of his tenure to be a failed football program after he went on the whole Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley run of 21 years of winning. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Jason Young at FBBI Insurance. You know it as Bottrell. The next time that you are on the Pearl River Resort property, whether that's the Golden Moon Casino or Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge, which is the Timeout Lounge, or Silver Star, or in Phillip M's, or Mama M's, call for some ice-cold Patron tequila, the world's #1 selling tequila, super premium, 100% blue agave. Patron. It is excellent. I love it. On the rocks with an orange slice. And we welcome in our friend Chris Hopwood on the Out of Bounds Show and the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. The Hoppy Hopster, director of the Sportsbook for the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. Chris Hopwood, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, man, all right. What were your thoughts on what went down with the Alabama head baseball coach, Brad Bohannon, and as that all played out through the Ohio casino and all of that as someone who is the director of a big sports book?
Well, I mean, some of the information is still coming out, so we don't know all the details of it. I know I saw some stuff coming out yesterday, but that there isn't that the bettor has some attachment to Cincinnati baseball, if it's true. But I mean, it's tough because in the industry, some of these big sports books want to take huge limits on games. And from my understanding, that it was an attempted large bet that was a lot more than what would normally be taken on college baseball. And I mean, we've been taking baseball. I think we're the only ones who've been taking baseball since this initial expansion of sports betting.
Right.
So it's not new to us. So but it is new to the whole industry of taking regular season college baseball. And of course, a bet like that would never come through. I mean, we take $1,000, $2,000 bets every once in a while in these college baseball games. It's exciting for our customers. But this incident, I mean, from my understanding, from what I've heard from the information, it's basically like insider information because the line, I think, was -280 on the game, which for the customers, you have to put $280 up to win $100 from the casino. And with that information, at most, it probably would have changed to like -340, -360. So they would have to put up a little bit more money to win the same amount of money from the casino. So there was a little insider information going on if that's the case, but it doesn't look like the game was actually fixed because it all played out the way it should have been played out. And this is the whole thing. Usually the legal sports betting is usually what catches some of these activities from happening.
Right. No, I'm with you. Chris Hopwood, director of the Sportsbook, Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. And he joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. What's the largest college baseball bet you've taken in the last few years?
Well, I mean, we've taken a $5,000 bet, but it's on a big favorite, so it doesn't win. Let's say it wins $1,000 from the casino, so it's not like it's a large loss for the casino, and that's why I'm trying to figure. I don't know. I mean, they haven't told us what these bets. They just say they're large, so I'm saying maybe it's a six-figure bet that was attempted.
Really?
And that's the thing. I mean, that's where some of the stuff was in my mind with this industry is some people want to take these large bets because they're great marketing tools, like we hear from Matrix Mac.
Right.
But there's some sports that are very new to the industry you shouldn't really be taking and going out because there's not as much information on a day-to-day basis with pitchers, just like we would have for Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. And of course, I mean, these kids go to school, these kids do everything else. So let me just say the lines aren't as accurate as they probably should be.
Chris Hopwood on the Out of Bounds Show, director of the Sportsbook, Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge, full bar and food. Great place to hang out. You got the Heat and the Nuggets today, and then you've also got win totals. You know, college football and NFL, and then of course you got the U.S. Open coming up in golf. So still a lot going on in the world of sports. The calendar year's kind of done other than the NBA. So go back to last September 1 till today. What's the largest bet you took, whether it was football or March Madness or whatever at the book?
Well, I mean, $20,000 would probably be the largest single bet we've taken. And that's going back to college football, Super Bowl. I mean, those would be the top ends. I mean, I'm sometimes looking for bigger bets on these huge events, but it hasn't really come across the counter, I guess. We've had multiple back-to-back bets, maybe $5,000 from different friends betting individually instead of just one large bet. But we have had some large payouts. I mean, we've had some parlays hitting for $30,000 and all during football season, college basketball season.
Okay. Has Mattress Mac ever approached y'all?
Nah, he's not going to get the same marketing advertisement he would get with the big sports books that he would get for us.
Good point. Let's talk about, since the ruling came down from the Supreme Court in 2018, and the Sportsbook opened, and it's new and it's exciting, but just talk about how the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge has evolved the last 5 years. Hopwood.
Well, for me, everything was starting everything from scratch, coming from Vegas. So it was trying to feel out how this market was going to work. And of course, everyone down here knows we love college sports. We love SEC sports. And it's steadily grown, and it's gotten to a point where now it's like, how do you find more things for people to bet on? Because I know there's more interest in just we have those slot machine gamblers that just want to bet on anything. But for us, it's grown, and we're having a good thing. I mean, we have another casino down in Sandersville at Bocoma Casino, and that does really well because it's near Hattiesburg and Laurel. And at this point, we are looking at other expansions. It was announced that we have a Louisville project opening up, so that sportsbook may be opening probably in the next year or so. And it's just an exciting time for me because I get to do something new. I've been doing this thing for a long time in Las Vegas, and I come here and just watching how the industry has changed and how we can go forward with just doing different things in the sports betting world.
Okay, I can't remember. I know I ask you every quarter, I guess, but this past season, college football and NFL, and I know NFL is so much bigger, but we're, like you said, we're in the SEC and the Sun Belt. Where did you have more action? Did you still have just a little bit more action on NFL, or did you have more action on SEC college football? Chris?
Well, if you break it down like that, there would be more action on the NFL itself, but college sports, especially college football, there's so many more games. So if you look at handle compared to just sport to sport, it's almost 50-50 for us.
Okay.
But because, I mean, you have on Saturday for college football, there's 80 to 120 games going on.
Good point.
In the NFL, you have 16 games.
Right.
So it's the same amount but the handle overall is equal for us.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. So which one is growing more? Is the college football, SEC football handle growing more at Pearl River Resort, or is the NFL handle growing more year to year?
Well, the college sports in general are growing more. It's just because, I mean, we just have the love for it here. I mean, I know there's been some days where we were a little late getting some college baseball games up, and I have the customers yelling at me, "Where's my games at?"
That's incredible.
So that's why, like, with this other thing going on in the world, it was like, I mean, I heard a lot of the big places don't really take bets on college sports or college baseball, and I'm like, that's not what we have down here. but like you were asking about football, it just grows. I mean, it's grown to a point. I mean, we've had, of course, the economy has taken a little hit for us with the handle, but it hasn't really dropped off much.
What the Out of Bounds show, this interview brought to you by Patron Reposado Tequila, 100% blue agave super premium tequila on the rocks with a lime. He is Chris Hopwood, director of the Sportsbook, Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge, the Timeout Lounge, full bar and food. Great place to hang out. They got comfortable leather chairs. It's just a ton of fun to take in the games, whether it's the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets, or any number of Formula One, or the U.S. Open coming up, and all the other things going on in the world of sports. So what about March Madness? Do you continue to see growth at the Golden Moon on March Madness year to year, Chris?
Well, and we do. But the one tough thing with that is you have a lot of people still like to go to Las Vegas and experience Vegas with the March Madness fun. But
sure,
it has for us. It's been growing. I mean, we've had some people because of our golf courses we offer that they'll come. They want to come and stay with us. It's closer. They don't have to spend as much money to go to Vegas, and they can come and play golf here, bet on their sports, come and watch the games all day long. Especially that first weekend when you have games.
Yeah,
that are just nonstop Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah, I was there with you a couple of months ago, and it was wild. Those first 2 days watching the people, and I saw a lot of golf groups come in. It was funny you say that for Dancing Rabbit Golf Club and dancingrabbitgolf.com, but that place gets wild on Thursday and Friday. Chris Hopwood, Golden Moon Casino, Sportsbook and Lounge. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. How does it? So everybody's excited Labor Day week. I know people have already placed a lot of bets prior to Labor Day, but college football gets kicked off. It'll be here before we know it. But I know people are really starting. They start to come in that weekend and that week, and then the NFL kicks off 4 days later on Thursday Night Football. And so, I guess it gets really revved up. I don't know if it stays that way or dips a little bit during the season, comes back, but how is it compared to like September and then Christmas holidays as the bowl games kick in and the NFL gets real serious and they start marching to the playoffs? Compare both times a year, Chris.
Well, like you said earlier, this is like the slow time for sports calendar. So it's kind of like dips, but everyone's talking about the college win totals, the pro win totals, and then going into the season. So there's excitement talking about it. So those first couple weekends, everyone's been starving for good football, and so they come in and for about a month, it's probably a lot of action going on for us, and then it kind of dips a little bit for maybe 2 or 3 weeks because people are now starting to get into the Thanksgiving holidays. But then once that kind of passes off and they buy their gifts for their families, things kind of start picking back up because now like you said, you have serious football going on, the bowl games,
right,
all throughout the month of December, and then of course the playoffs when it starts getting serious with the NFL. So it has a little bit slight dip before Thanksgiving, but then it just picks right back up going into the bowl season and then Super Bowl.
Okay, Blake wants to bet on the Cowboys going 16-1. Do you think that's a smart bet?
No.
Okay. All right. There we go. Chris Hopwood, Golden Moon Casino, Sportsbook and Lounge on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. I can't wait to get back up there. Don't forget, as Chris mentioned, pair some golf with the Sportsbook, and that's a win for 24 to 48 hours. DancingRabbitGolf.com to book your stay and play now. And don't forget to call for some super premium Patron tequila while you are on the property. Okay, give me the top 3 to 5 college football teams bet at the book. Is Bama still 1 and MSU still 2? How does that work?
Yeah, it's why we just go top 4 because you have it's almost equal with Mississippi State and then of course Ole Miss. Yep. But the LSU and Alabama are there too. Those are like the top 4 that we have. But Alabama is still number 1. And then, of course, it would come in with our state schools before LSU.
Okay. That tells me all I need to know. Yeah. Is LSU that far? I mean, I don't know how you could. How far back? Is it just a whisker that LSU is from Mississippi State and Ole Miss, or is it a pretty sizable gap, Chris?
No, it's just a whisper. I mean, all SEC sports here all the teams are popular, and, of course, we know LSU won a championship not too long ago. So it's the popularity has it, and we have even our associates that work at the casino. We have LSU fans that work here, so
yeah,
so they want to see the games.
Yeah. So is Georgia creeping up because of their run, their domination the last 2 years? The fact that even prior to that, Kirby Smart had them in either the playoff or championship games. Do you see Georgia's numbers going up, or will it take a little more time, Hopwood?
Well, Georgia's numbers are up there too. It's just because Georgia is a dominant team, just like Alabama. Sometimes their spreads are just really high. So
gotcha. Yeah.
They're 21, 28 points, so that kind of like takes some of the interest away from the customers.
Okay.
And I mean, it doesn't really do it for Alabama, but it does do it for some of the other schools when they have the big spread.
Yeah, Chris, that actually leads me to a thought I was having too. Was do you see? And I know probably futures are just now trickling in, but over your 5 years of doing this now, do you see that futures tend to stray towards brand names and day-to-day betting tends to go more towards the competitive lines, which don't always include brand names, or am I off there?
No, you're right there. I mean, when we first got here, or first opened, when I first got here, the future betting wasn't really anything big here. We couldn't. That was always the one thing we looked at in Vegas, was to see where our risk was at for the Super Bowl or the college championships, and it didn't happen the first 2 years here. But now we've had people start betting futures, and then of course, like, there's been more picking up betting golf, which has been great seeing since we have those great golf courses. But the brand names are usually the ones where they're trying to find a good line, I guess, a good odds with it. And but I mean, when college basketball was going around for March Madness, we had some of the long shots that people were just taking shots with, hoping they would get through with the 15 and 16 seeds. And we had some nice $50,000 losses on some of those games if they would have somehow won an NCAA championship.
My gosh! Wow, Chris Hopwood. Pearl River Resort, Golden Moon Casino, Sportsbook and Lounge. It's the Timeout Lounge. It's awesome. Great place to watch the games, full bar and food. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Year 5, Supreme Court ruling, sports betting legal, and now we've got the sports books, and they're our guys. So when you look at, can you give me the breakdown of bets, parlays to straight up? Because I know you love seeing parlays.
Usually we're probably floating in the 70-75% range of parlays to straight bets. So that's, I mean, it's based, I mean, it's like a slot machine. You could go and pick 8 teams, and your ticket could pay out $30,000, just like if you put in $100 in a slot machine. So there's a lot of interest in going in with that route, and that's kind of the way it seems to be with even the whole industry as a whole, is that the recreational bettors like the bigger payoffs than just coming up and putting $5,000 in a game to win $5,000 if it's an even money bet. I mean, usually you have to put up $5,500 to win $5,000.
All right. So speaking of savvy, smart bettors, you've got another poker tournament coming up in, I can't remember if it's late June or July. But I saw the post from your social media team. Are they, when y'all host those big poker tournaments, do you find that those guys, men and women, are more savvy, Hopwood?
Well, poker players.
Well, I mean, when they're betting, when they're betting in your sports book, not when they're playing in the poker tournament. I know you're not overseeing that, but you mentioned the last time you were on March Madness that guys will come over and bet in the sports book. Are they some of your more savvy bettors in the sports book?
I would say yes, because like poker players in general usually like to find advantages or odds in their favor, and they play probability. So because our lines are not exactly the same as what the whole world has. So if they see that they have an edge because our line might be 1.5 or 2 points different than the rest of the world, then they'll play it. So it kind of balances our action out. So we don't have the same risk that we would have if it was just a one-sided betting scenario. So it does help that, but I don't know. There's a lot of information out there, and of course the sports books have the information just like the customers have. So unless you have some great new way of predicting games, I don't know how they would have a huge advantage.
Okay. Can you read that? I bet most of the time when a group of poker players come in the sports book in between them playing their games, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, one thing for me is I since I have a lot of experience with this, and I used to play a little bit when I was in Vegas. Uh-huh. If anybody likes to bet the way or look at things the way that I'm looking at things, I usually start paying a little more attention to those customers.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. They've got a great sports book to our listeners. If you haven't made it up there in the last 5 years, it's comfortable. It's fun. Again, leather chairs, all sorts of different places within the sports book to hang out with your buddies. Full bar, food, 30 TVs. It's just, and you're right off the floor. So if you want to go jump in a hand of blackjack or whatever you want to do, poker. You can do that too. He's Chris Hopwood, director of the Sportsbook for the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. It's the Timeout Lounge on the property of Pearl River Resort. Go ahead and book your stay and play, golf stay and play. Golf, Sportsbook, Phillip M's, eat in the bar area. It's great. They have taken their bourbon game to another level, and they also have Patron, which is awesome. Obviously, every bar there has Tito's. And what else was I going to throw in? Oh, the food's awesome. Steaks and calamari and all that at Phillip M's. Chris Hopwood on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Do you like to laugh and make fun of DraftKings and FanDuel's lines?
Well, if you look at the lines in general across the industry, they're kind of all the same. It's almost I used to always call it it's like copy and paste. Everyone kind of has the same line. No one's really doing anything different. So it's their marketing is what's driving customers to their sites. I'm hoping at some point in time the industry does change and people start taking more of a chance. Like when I first got in this business, and you had a different betting line at each casino going across down the strip in Vegas. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody's going to end up doing that. I mean, I'm trying to do something different where we're not exactly the same on games, especially we move a little bit faster than they would do on the money coming in. But I don't know, the marketing part of it, I love the big bets. I love hearing about the big bets. It's just, to me, it's just a marketing pull.
Right. Have you, last one, I've only got a minute. When you're in a rural area, so you didn't know what to expect. Are you impressed with the betting, and are you impressed with the crowds that you've been able to witness the last 5 years, especially on Saturdays and Sundays, football or the first weekend of March Madness, Hopwood?
Yeah, I didn't know what I expected to get here, but when I got here, I love what's going on. I love the fans and the interaction with just college sports in general, because that's what we love down here. I mean, we're doing more business than I was doing at the Stratosphere, that's for sure.
Wow. How long were you in Vegas, Chris?
I was there for 17 years.
Wow. All right. For our listeners, don't hold this against Hopwood. He's a Miami Hurricane fan. So, and Dolphins. Although the Dolphins are turning the corner with Mike McDaniel, because that dude's a little freak. And, and they put some weapons around to us. So, and the Patriots are going the wrong way, and the Jets will always be the Jets. So you just got to deal with the Bills, and maybe Hopwood's team can continue to, trend the right way. How about that? All right. Hey, Hopwood, hopefully we'll do a remote, maybe Father's Day week, U.S. Open. I'll get with the crew, and then we'll also talk some win totals for college football and NFL. Come down and see us, buddy. We'll take you to lunch or dinner, and I hope you're doing well. All right?
All right, sounds good. But we still got the golf promo going on, too, that we upped it this year. So it's even though the price went up a little bit, it's still we still have the golf promo going on throughout the summer.
Oh, yes. All right, I'm going to have to hammer that, my man. Thanks, Hopwood.
All right, have a good one. Thanks.
Chris Hopwood, Hop Mania, joining us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, director of the Sportsbook of the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook and Lounge. That's the Timeout Lounge, baby. Book your stay and play right now. DancingRabbitGolf.com. Shoot me a text. I'll meet you and your buddies up there, and we can smash a steak, have a beverage, and do a little win totals for football season. We're going to do a little burgers, blues, and barbecue. B3 Food Truck is here. We'll do that in the third hour. Good morning. Welcome in on a Thursday to the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9.